friends, we're going to be doing some Schroth exercises paired with some strengthening exercises in this sequence today. Something to keep in mind anytime you're doing strengthening exercises is how important it is to maintain your best alignment out of the curve, so that way you're strengthening your body in the most symmetrical and, more importantly, stable way that you can for your spine. So I'm going to start by warming up with prone on knees exercise. And whatever workout you're doing, I usually recommend bookending it with Schroth. So doing a Schroth exercise at the beginning and at the end, and then having those reminders on rest breaks to find your best alignment or midline position three-dimensionally. So I'm going to come into hands and knees first, hands right underneath shoulders, knees right underneath hips. I'm going to turn my hands in so pinkies touch and thumbs touch. And then just come down onto my elbows with forehead hovering right above my hands here. My head's not actually touching, it's just hovering. It's a little more work for your deep neck flexors. You're going to start with breath, thinking about elongating through your spine, trying to keep your neck a continuation of the rest of the spine. As you inhale, grow tall and wide. As you exhale, create tension and pressure by pressing your elbows to opposite sides of the room, pressing head and hips in opposite directions. Inhale, lengthen, expand. And then exhale, push elbows wide, head and hips opposite directions. And then start bringing some focused attention to the concavity of the back or concavities, and start thinking about inhaling and expanding, moving prominences down towards the floor, concavities up and back. As you exhale, hold that new position. And do a couple more breaths here. Inhale and lengthen. And then exhale, hold it there, keep that position. Inhale again, expand and open. And then exhale, hold it right there, keep pressure, keep tension, maintain. You can take a couple of breaths naturally. Come back up onto hands and knees. Get my hair out of my face. And so line up again, hands underneath shoulders, knees underneath hips. And we're gonna move into a plank position. And then I'm gonna turn that plank into kind of a modified downward dog. And so you're gonna go ahead and extend one leg straight back, then the other. Here again, think about that neutral spine to the best of your ability. Hold this position for a full inhalation and exhalation. And then when you're ready, send your hips back, keep neck long, getting a little bit of a hamstring stretch here. Again, full inhalation, full exhalation, and then back into plank. Take another full inhalation and exhalation so you're following your breath, holding that nice neutral spine. As you're sending your hips back, that motion should be coming from the hips, hinging from the hips. We're going to do one more. Continue to maintain your best alignment. You can, again, do this on forearms if you prefer. You can't really do the rocking back into downward dog as easily, but you could do the plank on your forearms if it's hard on your wrists. And you can always just take a little rest break on knees or in 4.2. So I'm going to come back to this position and then sit up nice and tall, trying to find nose and belly button lining up, ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips, hips over knees in this position. And then I'm going to go ahead and come up into standing because we're going to do a few exercises here. So first, we're going to do a little balance and coordination and a little core stability too with a standing bird dog. So find your best standing position. Maybe take 1 or 2 breaths to reset. Check that your hips are underneath your trunk, nose and belly button lining up. You're standing nice and tall. And then we're going to try picking up opposite arm and leg and then switching sides. So we're trying to stay as tall as possible, long throughout the spine. It is a little balance, it is a little core strength. You can always break this down into components too. So you could do just arms, you could do just legs, and then we're gonna come back into standing. Take another little rest break here. So those movements are really nice because they force you to think about your balance, about your core stability. And so you can, again, break it down into pieces, find the version that works for you. I'm gonna do a few versions of a squat here next. I'm gonna start by bringing my legs a little wider than my mat here. And I'm gonna warm up just by doing a hip hinge. This hip hinge motion is really important for a lot of movements and exercises, and so it's always nice to focus there for a moment first, even just as you're warming up. So hinging from your hips, keeping that spine nice and long and neutral in the back, no rounding there. Just coming forward till maybe you feel a little bit of a stretch through the back of the legs. And then standing up tall, hinging again forward. I'm gonna do 3 more. So you could just stay doing this motion if that feels like enough of a challenge or feels good to you. As you're hinging forward, you can continue to think about lengthening, so pressing your head and hips in opposite directions, always trying to be as tall as you can in every position and exercise that we do. And then I'm gonna go ahead and turn this into a bit of a wide-legged squat here, or straddle squat. You could keep hands on your hips, you could bring hands forward, you could keep hands here. I sometimes like to hold mine here for a little bit more stability and balance. You could also add weight. So this is an easy position to add a kettlebell or just free weight here. The most important thing is that you maintain that postural correction. If you feel like you're losing your ability to maintain stability through the spine, that's a good sign that the exercise is too hard for you and you need to back off. So maybe try a couple just body weight squats first. Make sure it feels okay, it's feeling good. And then you could give yourself a little bit of a challenge with maybe even 5-8 pounds. How much weight you're gonna end up holding depends on so many factors, so it's really hard for me to say what a good amount is without being able to individualize. But generally speaking, you could start with a lower weight and build from there. So we're gonna start just with the squat again, thinking about that nice neutral spine. It's okay if you don't come down to hips and knees at 90 degrees. Again, more important that you're maintaining the stability through the spine. Less important how deep you're going from the standpoint of the scoliosis. It really is stability first. I'm gonna do a few more. So if you're doing exercises for strengthening, you could shoot for somewhere between 8 to 12 reps, about 3 sets. I'm not gonna do all of that today, but if you want to do more strengthening, that's a good number to shoot for. If you're able to do more than 8 to 12 reps, chances are the weight or exercise maybe isn't hard enough for you. If you're really struggling to get to 8, there's a chance that maybe it's a little bit too hard, and that might just increase the risk for injury because you might not be able to maintain that solid stability in your core. If you really want to lift heavy, you definitely need supervision. It's super, super important. So I don't recommend anyone try to start lifting or lift heavy without someone watching them, looking at your form, spotting for safety. It really does make a big difference. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do one more round of these squats. And you can turn this into an elongated squat if you want. So you can think about coming down and then maybe even coming up on your toes. So there's lots of versions we can do here, but coming up on your toes just adds a little balance challenge. So squatting down, coming up tall. We'll do a couple more. Okay, and then I'm gonna come back in to standing, and we're gonna do a another exercise that's really based around the hip hinge, and it is a single leg deadlift. Again, it is balance, it is stability that we need first, and it really comes from hinging or pivoting around your hip joint. I'm gonna do this with some weights in my hands. Sometimes it actually makes it a little bit easier to balance if you have some light weight. So I picked up 3-pound weights here. And so it is that hip hinge motion first. And if you wanna just practice, you can imagine sliding your weights down your thighs to just about knee height and then coming back up. So this is more of a standard version of a deadlift, and you might just choose to stay here. Again, the key is that neutral spine, lots of length. You will see people take this further and go below the knee with the weight. I would practice here first. Before that, so you can maintain that nice neutral spine. If that's feeling good and you want to try the single leg version, I'm going to step forward just a little bit to make sure I've got some space here. You're going to start by shifting all your weight onto one leg, standing really nice and tall, squeezing core and glutes, and then you're going to hinge from that hip just as far as you can with maintaining neutral spine. So you can see I'm not going super far. It's a bit of a balance challenge. It's a bit of a strength challenge. I'm standing on this really squishy mat, which is making my feet work a little bit harder, so I'm just doing a little motion. You will see people do, where their body almost ends up parallel to the floor. That's fine, as long as you can control that movement and keep the stability. You could also do this holding on to something with your hands, like a countertop, and practice this hip hinge or pivot this way for stability too. I'm gonna do one more on that leg, and then I'm gonna go ahead and switch other side. You may notice that one leg's gonna be easier than the other. It's fairly typical for that to happen. You also want to think about what's happening in relation to the curve. So when you're standing on the side of the concavity of the curve, that side's going to naturally lengthen and open a little bit more. When you're on maybe what is your dominant leg or the side of the convexity of the curve, you might find it easier to kind of collapse into the curve or rotate through your hips. And so you just have to watch that and make sure you're maintaining that good stability that we really want. So I'm going to go ahead and try to pivot around this hip. You're just doing the best you can. I say it all the time, but it really is just about doing the best you can in the moment. Nobody's perfect. I mean, you can definitely see here that I'm not perfect. Balance isn't perfect. I'm not getting totally parallel to the ground, but I'm doing the best I can in the moment. And the most important thing is that I'm able to maintain decent enough alignment for my spine so that the exercise is worthwhile and it's worth doing. If that falls apart, then we really have to question, okay, why are you doing this movement at all? Maybe now's not the moment, maybe you need to work towards that, because the stability is really key. And if you lose that stability, it's not gonna be nearly as beneficial for you. Okay, so I'm gonna put these weights back down and just end in standing, finding the best standing position, staying nice and tall, ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips, hips over ankles. Hopefully you're feeling like you can find your center a little more quickly. You got a little bit of a workout. Starting to think about how you can build strengthening into your exercises safely. Let me know what questions you have. Always love to hear comments and feedback, and thank you so much for watching.